Chapter 430 Wisdom. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After Zhang Yi and the team got back to the shelter, they crashed in the living room to recharge. The women were on it, bringing around hot drinks and snacks to help them recover. Zhou Qi stood behind Zhang Yi, gently massaging his shoulders to work out the stress. Even though they'd successfully fought off the zombie horde, Zhang Yi didn't seem relieved. A cloud of doubt hung over him, and he looked genuinely worried. Fatty Sue, who was cracking jokes with Uncle Yu, noticed and was thrown off by Zhang Yi's expression. "Boss, what's with the long face?" That everyone picked up on Zhang Yi's vibe and shot him concerned looks. "Yeah, what's eating you? You look so serious. Spill it. We can brainstorm this together." Zhang Yi looked up at them, took a deep breath, and explained. "We wiped out over half the zombies yesterday. But today's wave was even bigger. That tells me the zombie virus is spreading like wildfire, and everyone who kicks the bucket is turning into one of them. If this keeps up, Tianhai City will be completely overrun. I can't even picture how we'll survive then." Zhang Yi's words wiped the smiles off everyone's faces. Heads drooped as they pondered the grim picture he'd painted. Yang Xinxin, in her wheelchair, took a slow sip of cappuccino before chiming in. "It's not totally obvious yet. Otherwise, they wouldn't just be sending a few thousand zombies at us each time." However, she shifted gears, her tone unusually serious. "If we don't figure out what's behind these zombies, they're going to be a massive problem down the road." Lu Karen sighed heavily. "If only it were summer. They'd all rot away into skeletons." Zhang Yi countered, "It's not just their numbers that scare me. It's that they seem to be controlled, like they're not just mindless monsters. Plus, they're damn hard to kill. You gotta burn them or chop them to pieces. That makes dealing with them even tougher." Yang Xinxin stated, "So, the key is taking out whoever's pulling the strings." Zhang Yi gave a wry smile. "Easy peasy. But where do we find them? Every time we kill half the zombies, they book it. I can't even tell if there's a controller mixed in with the corpses. After all, with superpowers and all." Zhang Yi threw his hands up. "It's a total crapshoot. Common sense goes out the window." And diving headfirst into the subway to investigate was out of the question. That place was probably crawling with even more zombies. Even with their serious firepower, Zhang Yi wasn't about to stray too far from the shelter unless he absolutely had to. Just as everyone was throwing out different ideas, Zhou Qi, still standing behind Zhang Yi, spoke softly. "Actually, I have a theory." Zhang Yi craned his neck, trying to see her face, but two obstacles blocked his view. "Oh?" Zhang Yi signaled her to go on. Usually, Zhou Qi, being a doctor, wasn't directly involved in strategy sessions, but now, her medical expertise was coming into play. She knew the virus better than anyone else at the shelter, so her input was valuable. Encouraged by Zhang Yi, Zhou Qi continued. "I've been studying the zombie corpses for the past few days, and I've found this really weird virus-like thing. It can handle extreme cold, even survive at -150 degrees Fahrenheit. It can invade living things' nervous systems and control their bodies. But..." Zhou Qi frowned slightly. "It doesn't fit the modern biological definition of a virus. Its structure is somewhere between a virus and a cell. It's more like a cell, but it invades the host's body and reproduces like a virus." Zhang Yi, who forgot everything he learned after graduation, looked confused. Can you dumb it down for me?" Only a handful of people in the room were following Zhou Qi's jargon. The three men were totally lost. Zhou Qi gave a sheepish smile. "Since the world ended, gamma rays have redefined biology. Let's just call it the zombie virus for now. Basically, it's acting like bacterial colonies or even social animals. When zombies are together, their actions are coordinated, and they even seem kind of smart. But the corpses I studied in the lab had weakened reproductive instincts and barely reacted. So, I think the virus might be controlled like a biological population, where a mother cell can control them somehow." Zhang Yi sat up straight on the sofa. Remote control. Zhou Qier waved her hands. Not from super far away. Like, animals communicate through scent. This mutated virus must have its own way of sending messages. Zhang Yi asked, you mean, if we kill the mother cell, these zombies will die? Zhou Qier shook her head. Hard to say. But they won't be what they are now. They won't be able to act on a large scale with a certain amount of smarts. Smarts. That word struck Zhang Yi like a bolt of lightning. His eyes lit up. He'd finally figured out what felt off. I think I get it. That he clapped his hands together and explained, have you guys noticed that the zombie attacks seem coordinated, but also kind of dumb? They act pretty naive and always back off when we kill a few. It's like a toddler learning to talk, taking it one word at a time. When Zhang Yi put it that way, it made sense to everyone. The zombies still seemed slow-witted. Even when hit with flamethrowers, they didn't try to spread out and attack, but they knew to avoid Zhang Yi's dimensional door and bailed when things got dicey. Some smarts, but not a ton. Wait a minute, Zhang Yi. I think I know what you mean. Liang Yu spoke up, her eyes cautious. You're saying our enemy might be a zombie with intelligence. It might be someone who mutated after death, or a person taken over by the virus who became the mother cell. Either way, it just gained intelligence and is still figuring out how humans fight. Zhang Yi thought that guess was spot on. Their tactics didn't seem like those of a human with a normal IQ, but they weren't totally brainless either. If this thing really exists, we're talking about a zombie king. After all, we've confirmed two ways to get superpowers. One is near death, and the other is being exposed to something like the Ice Soul. So, gaining superpowers after death isn't impossible. Zhang Yi had a brief flashback but kept that secret to himself. Chapter 431 Infinite Evolution. You are listening at nThe. After 2 battles, Zhang Yi and his crew had pieced together some intel on the mysterious zombie surge. They're fast, ferocious, and a simple headshot won't put them down for good. They've even shown signs of intelligence, but so far, the possibility of a corpse king pulling the strings is just a theory. Zhang Yi, propping his chin up, considered this calmly. If these corpses are evolving intelligence, he said quietly, the attacks will keep coming. That gives us more chances to learn. We need to watch their every move, find their weaknesses. First, though, we gotta clear out the immediate area. These zombies are a major threat. If they don't wipe them out, they'll keep getting harassed and there's no telling what might happen if they were dealing with humans. Zhang Yi wouldn't sweat it, people respect strength. They'd back off if they knew they were outmatched, but these undead aren't afraid of death. They'll keep coming at you, no matter what. Zhang Yi wasn't willing to live with that kind of threat, so he was determined to end it quickly, at least, the threat close by. But, there's another issue, Liang Yu said. He set his Tang Dao down and leaned back on the sofa, arms crossed. If these corpses are evolving intelligence, to the point where they can control hordes of zombies, how did they orchestrate outbreaks all over Tianhai City at the same time? Zhang Yi shrugged, unfazed. Beats me. Yang Xinxin, who had been quiet, spoke up. Subways. The word lit up the room. None of them had been underground, deep below the surface, but it's common knowledge that the temperature there is higher, and it's easy to get around. Yang Xinxin looked up, her amber eyes sharp. She laid out her theory. The closest zombie hotspot to us is Tsitsu subway station. The Tianhai City subway system is a web connecting the entire city. The zombies could use it to move anywhere. Whether this was planned or accidental, we'll have to figure out later. Zhang Yi, still propping up his chin, nodded thoughtfully. That would also explain why the horde we faced was smaller. Yunk Manor is pretty isolated, and only the Tsitsu line runs through here. Zhang Yi turned to Yang Xinxin. Xinxin, keep an eye on the other factions. I need intel on the zombie situation everywhere else. Sooner or later, we'll have to find a way to stop this for good. Yang Xinxin smiled and nodded. Of course. But things aren't looking good for them right now. The three big bases all have underground shelters, but they also have important facilities above ground: steel mills, oil refineries, coastal ports. These are the cornerstones of their operations. They can't afford to let the zombies destroy them. They'll fight to defend them. That means constant battles. It's even worse for the snow worship cult. They live large, but their clashes with the zombies are costing them big. They don't even have defenses that can hold back a full-on horde. Zhang Yi chuckled, unimpressed. Those are their problems. If they're too stubborn to make tough choices, they can keep fighting. Especially the snow worship cult. They're attracting more followers, which is starting to make me nervous. This crisis might be good for us if it thins out their ranks a bit. Everyone's imagination was running wild, picturing how the other factions were struggling with the zombie tide. Misery loves company, and considering Zhang Yi's crew wasn't exactly on good terms with anyone else, the fact that they were getting swamped by zombies actually made Zhang Yi feel pretty good. In the afternoon, Zhang Yi and Uncle Yu went to the gate. They doused the ground with gasoline. Now that they knew the zombies were basically a mutated virus, they had a way to fight back. Burn it out, and you can wipe out a ton of zombies at once. The third wave came sooner than expected. This time, it was midnight. Luckily, Zhang Yi and the others were ready. They didn't dare sleep much, and they had set up a watch, so, when the zombies attacked, they were geared up and ready to go. Switching to nighttime attacks, huh? Did they figure out we have the advantage during the day, or is it just a coincidence? Zhang Yi hoisted the flamethrower onto his back and carefully headed downstairs, but this time, it was clear that the zombies were changing their tactics. Instead of surrounding them in a group like before, they were spread out across the snowfield, swarming towards the shelter like locusts. Looks like they really are learning. Uncle Yu sighed, puffing on a cigarette. This would reduce the effectiveness of the gasoline traps they had set up. It's bad, but it's also good. At least our guess was right. Zhang Yi stared coldly at the sea of corpses on the snowfield. He was now certain that a corpse king was behind it all. Each time they fought, the enemy adapted their tactics. They might seem clumsy at first, but both the corpse king and the zombies were evolving. Eventually, they'd master Zhang Yi's team's fighting style. At that point, all Zhang Yi's team could do was hide in the shelter, afraid to even step outside. These days, even zombies are learning to collect intel. Zhang Yi blew out a puff of smoke and put on his helmet's mask. Time for a test, he told Liang Yu and the others. Wipe them all out this time. No survivors. He hopped onto Hua. Let's cut off their retreat. He pulled out a rifle. Against these kinds of zombies, you need firepower to tear them apart. Uncle Yu laughed. All right. Let's end this. Fatty Su rolled his eyes. What's the fun in killing a bunch of corpses? Uncle Yu didn't get angry. Instead, he said, Xiao Su, all these moving targets are a great way to practice your skills. Fatty Su didn't answer, but he started to summon a blizzard in front of the shelter. Rarark. The zombies let out an ear-splitting cry. Spotting Zhang Yi and the others, they charged. Having dealt with them before, everyone stayed calm. Fatty Su's blizzard disoriented the zombies and slowed them down. Then, Uncle Yu started torching rows of them with his flamethrower, like an exterminator. Liang Yu, wielding his tang sword, created a 3-meter arc of dark blue light as he sliced through the horde like lightning. No zombie, no matter how fast, could outrun an enhanced human. As long as they weren't surrounded like before. They couldn't touch Liang Yu, and Liang Yu's strikes were wide and deadly, splitting the zombies in half from head to crotch. He made sure they wouldn't be getting back up. As for Zhang Yi, he rode Hua around the horde, flanking them. His rifle was aimed low, not at their heads or bodies. With his power-boosted rifle, close-range attacks were devastating, easily shattering their lower bodies. Meow. Hua looked up and winked at Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi understood and jumped off. Hua's black fur turned into sharp steel needles. The cat transformed into a giant black ball and slammed into the middle of the zombies. Like a tank, the ball plowed through the horde, the fur blades tearing them to shreds. Chapter 432 Backhand. You are listening at nThe. If we're being honest, Zhang Yi and the others were initially a little spooked by the zombie horde and hesitant to engage, but now, they'd pretty much sized up the zombies' true capabilities. Sure, they were faster and stronger than regular folks, but still way weaker than the awakened, and Zhang Yi's crew was the cream of the crop in Tianhai City. 1,000 zombies? No sweat. They used hit-and-run tactics, circling the zombie mob like sheepdogs herding sheep, then taking them out one by one. The zombies, clueless to Zhang Yi's plan, just kept on attacking. Big mistake. Zhang Yi, with his superpowered spray gun, could vaporize 5 or 6 zombies per shot from a distance, and with his speed boost, no way the zombies could catch him. Hua Hua and Liang Yu flanked, cutting down zombies left and right. Up front, Uncle Yu and Fatty Su were throwing out ice and fire, controlling the field and delivering massive AoE damage. Zhang Yi kept mowing down zombies, but he was also watching them closely. He was trying to spot the Corpse King in the crowd or figure out if it was controlling the horde from afar. Theoretically, the Corpse King should be smarter. If it sensed danger, it would bolt. Sure enough, after they'd thinned the herd by half, the zombies started getting agitated. They spun around and bolted back toward the Tzitsu subway station. Hey, you came all this way. Why the sudden change of heart? Zhang Yi smirked. He and Hua Hua had already cut off their escape route. No way they were getting off that easy. They blocked the zombies' retreat and started the slaughter all over again. Hua Hua transformed into a black-bladed buzzsaw, shredding the undead into chunks. And Zhang Yi's superpowered rifle was devastatingly effective. Plus, Fatty Su's ice storm was making it tough for the zombies to even move. After about half an hour, they'd almost wiped them all out. Zhang Yi deliberately left one zombie alive, but not before hacking off its hands and jaw. Now, it was missing its entire lower jaw and all its upper teeth were gone, so it couldn't hurt anyone. So, boss, what's the plan? Fatty Su and the others walked over, curious about Zhang Yi's next move. Zhang Yi pulled out an infrared camera and jammed it into the zombie's eyeball. After this little field test, I'm pretty sure the Corpse King isn't among the horde, but it can still control their movements. Their main objective isn't to destroy us, it's to collect data and send it back to the Corpse King. They attack until they've gathered information, then the survivors relay it back. If this keeps up, they'll learn everything about us. Once they've got our fighting style down, the real heavy hitters will show up. Zhang Yi sneered, his eyes turning cold. So we gotta take the initiative and stop playing their game. Let this guy scout out what's happening in the subway. The others understood. Liang Yu jumped in. You mean go deep into the subway and find a way to destroy the zombies' nest? Zhang Yi nodded without hesitation. If we get the chance, absolutely. They're already adapting their attack methods. I can't guarantee they won't figure out how to counter us eventually. That would be a nightmare. Best defense is a good offense, so we gotta strike first. With that, Zhang Yi kicked the zombie. It scrambled to its feet and hobbled toward the Tzitsu subway station. Let's see what goodies our little friend brings back. Zhang Yi watched the zombie vanish, then turned and headed back to base. Liang Yu, deep in thought, followed him. So far, these zombies hadn't been much of a threat. In the past, Liang Yu would have charged into the subway and wiped them all out. After all, they weren't that tough. But Zhang Yi had taught her a valuable lesson. Even when you're strong, you have to go all out and stay vigilant when facing the unknown. That's how you survive in this crazy world. Back at the house, Zhang Yi fired up the TV and pulled up the feed from the infrared camera. The zombie made its way to the subway entrance. In about 10 minutes, it plunged into the hole, and after a few seconds, the camera stabilized. It was late, so everything was blurry. Infrared cameras pick up heat signatures from living things, but without them, the screen is dark. For a while, all they saw was blackness. Then, a red light appeared. Humanoid. Lights, 1, 2, 3, a swarm of zombies filled the underground space. Soon, the screen was a sea of red. It was hard to make out the shapes, because everything was dark red. Unlike the bright red of living humans, these were corpses, so they reflected only a faint energy representation of living bodies. For a long time, the entire screen was just dark red. They could see the camera moving, but the light never faded, it just got stronger. Zombies were lurking everywhere in the subway tunnels. How many zombies are down there? Fatty Sue blurted out. Just think about how many people died in Tianhai City, and you'll get the idea. Uncle Yu replied. Are all the dead in Tianhai City turning into zombies? What about us? Fatty Sue hugged himself, looking like a scared 200-pound kid. It was tempting to punch him. Yang Xinshin chimed in, it's too soon to say. A virus needs a host to turn a corpse into a zombie. But if this keeps up, that day might not be too far off. Zhang Yi sighed. True. There are just too many dead people in Tianhai City. Even if we tried to recover all the bodies, we could never get all 10 million plus. So, they could turn into zombies. Let's deal with the source now. Kill the Corpse King, and we'll save ourselves a lot of trouble. Just then, a much larger heat source appeared on the screen. It was vaguely humanoid, but taller and thinner compared to the surrounding zombies. It was almost 10 feet tall and as skinny as a stick insect. Everyone held their breath, eyes glued to the screen. Suddenly, a pale face filled the camera, a twisted smile on its lips. Chapter 433 Take the Initiative. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The sudden appearance of that bizarre face startled everyone, especially the woman, who screamed. Zhou Qier and Yang Mi clung to Zhang Yi, scared out of their minds. This wasn't some horror flick, but real zombies. The video cut off, leaving a snowy screen. Everyone was shocked, Zhang Yi included, not from fear, but because he didn't expect to see something like that. Found them, Zhang Yi exclaimed, then chuckled. This proves we were right. There are intelligent creatures down there. The Corpse King, that's it. I knew it, that pale face had to be the Corpse King. If we don't take it out, the shelters will never be safe. Fatty Sue jumped in, but how do we kill it? There are too many zombies underground. Even fully armed, clearing them out would take forever, Yang Xinshin added, plus, the subway tunnels go every which way. The Corpse King's smart, it'll run if it senses danger. Zhang Yi crossed his arms, his voice firm. We've got to do this right, once and for all. Yeah, there are a lot of zombies, but they're not exactly tough. If we go after them, numbers won't matter. Our priority is stopping the Corpse King from escaping. So, we hit them in the subway. Liang Yu suggested, we could start at Songzhuang, blow up the tunnel, and cut off their retreat. We just need to kill the king, making sure he can't get away. We can deal with the other zombies later. We have ways. Uncle Yu grinned, turning to Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi, it's up to you to figure out the how. Either way, we can't avoid this fight. Exactly. This battle was unavoidable. If they didn't strike first, the zombies would only get smarter. Once they learned all their weaknesses, they'd attack non-stop. Eventually, even the toughest shelter wouldn't hold. A million ants can bring down an elephant. Zhang Yi took a deep breath, leaning back on the sofa, weighing their options. After a moment, he announced, get ready. We move out tomorrow. The Corpse King would just get stronger every night. Better to hit it before it got out of control. The main 5-person team would handle the operation. Everything was ready. Weapons, ammo, gas masks, and Yang Mi's supercharged food. Enough supplies for a solid week of fighting underground. Everyone nodded, no questions. They were tired of cleaning up zombies daily, too, but Fatty Sue, looking worried, said to Zhang Yi, boss, why the rush? This doesn't feel like you. Zhang Yi was always careful, no matter what. This felt reckless. They didn't know the layout down there. Was diving in like this really the right call? What if there are surprises? We don't know much about the underground. Maybe we're underestimating the zombies' strength. Fatty Sue, who hated death most, was always the most cautious. Sometimes, he was even too cautious, which was his biggest flaw. Zhang Yi was a planner. Fatty Sue was a worrier, and because of it, Fatty Sue missed opportunities. Zhang Yi smiled, patting Fatty Sue's shoulder with a reassuring grin. Relax. I'm not gonna play games with anyone's lives. I'm prepared. You'll see. He saw something in Zhang Yi's eyes, a calm confidence that put him at ease. Fatty Sue smiled back. Why so mysterious, boss? Can't you just tell us? Zhang Yi chuckled. Just know that even if things get dicey, I've got an escape plan for everyone. He couldn't reveal everything just yet. Liang Yu tilted her head, looking at Zhang Yi, and seemed to figure something out. I get it. In that case, we're golden, right? Yang Mi sat up, smiling. Then I'll go make some snacks. Zhang Yi nodded. The more, the merrier. He was starting to understand Yang Mi's powers. Her ability to infuse food with energy not only restored strangers' powers but also quickly restored ordinary people's strength. However, that boost wore off after a week, unless the food was stored in Zhang Yi's pocket dimension, which was why he had Yang Mi making super snacks every day. He couldn't even keep track of how much he'd stored in his space, and was also why he was confident taking his people into the subway tunnels. For Zhang Yi, things were looking up. They basically knew the zombies' movements and had confirmed the Corpse King's existence, but there are two sides to every story. The other major forces were in trouble. Because of the Corpse King, the zombies were learning and evolving fast. Their attacks were getting smarter every time, tailored to each group's weaknesses. Unlike Zhang Yi and his crew, the other four factions had smaller, more elite forces, too many buildings to defend, too many soldiers, laborers, and slaves to protect. They had no way to deal with the constantly evolving zombies. What worked the first time didn't work the second, and the zombies kept coming, wave after wave. After fighting them off one day, they'd wake up the next to find them back again. Xiao Honglian, Xing Tian, and Wei Dinghai were at their wits' end. They couldn't abandon their refineries, steel plants, or seaports if they gave them up and holed up in their underground bunkers. The zombies couldn't get them, but those resources were their lifeblood. Giving them up meant giving up any chance of ruling Tianhai City, and so they fought, barely holding on, but against zombies that could learn. Their defenses were crumbling. Fences taught the zombies to climb, and barbed wire didn't slow down the frozen ones. Guns were useless. Only blunt weapons and heavy firepower did any real damage. They relied more and more on heavy artillery and superpowered people to stop the zombies. Xiao Honglian and the others started to realize something was wrong. These weren't just zombies. They were organized, like an insect swarm. Chapter 434 Heading to the Crypt. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The leaders of the major factions weren't dumb. Of course, they knew they weren't dealing with just your run-of-the-mill, brain-dead zombies this time around, but even knowing that, they were stuck. Just fending off the daily zombie attacks was already stretching their forces thin, sending elite squads to scout out the zombie nests. Forget about how dangerous that was. Splitting up their troops like that would leave their base camps vulnerable to attack. So, even though guys like Xing Tian and Wei Dinghai knew it wasn't a sustainable situation, they weren't about to send troops on some wild goose chase. But Xiao Hong wasn't wired that way. She was always headstrong and ready for a fight. Back when she was with the Tianhai City Police Department, that attitude, plus her dad being a big shot, helped her climb the ladder fast. We can't just sit here and wait to die, she said. If this keeps up, we'll be ditching the refinery and heading underground in less than a month to dodge the zombie hordes. Xiao Hong was perched on a steel pipe, covered in blood. They had just beaten back another wave of zombies. Thanks to her souped-up purgatory furnace ability and Yangqing Base's massive energy reserves, they were able to take down zombies faster than the other groups. But the constant harassment and the increasingly clever zombies had her on edge. Just like Zhang Yi, she was worried the zombies would keep getting smarter until they were completely outmatched. Even hiding underground wouldn't save them from becoming zombie chow at that point. Zhuge Qingting walked over. His white combat uniform was also splattered with blood, but he still stood tall and snapped off a crisp military salute to Xiao Hong. Chief, all the zombies are gone. Burn these things, and they're done for. But we also lost 67 soldiers and slaves. Xiao Hong looked up at him, her fiery red eyes shining with the afterburn of her ability. We need to change our tactics. We can't just keep playing defense. Zhuge Qingting's eyes widened. You mean, we go on the offensive and hit the zombies' nest? Xiao Hong nodded. The zombies are being controlled by someone. Maybe it's some kind of evolved freak, or another smart creature. Either way, we need intel, and lots of it. so we know how to end this thing for good. Zhuge Qingting frowned. That's too risky. We have no idea how big that hoard is. If we charge in blind, we could get wiped out. The other groups aren't doing much better. Maybe we should play it cool for a bit and see if they figure something out. Xiao Hong scoffed. Look at the size of this zombie surge. I don't see them cracking it anytime soon, especially those snow-worshipping fools. They've rounded up tens of thousands of people, they're practically setting out a zombie buffet. We can't count on anyone. They want us dead. If we're going to survive, we need to rely on ourselves. Zhuge Qingting couldn't argue with that, hoping for help from hostile groups was a fool's errand. Xiao Hong stood up. That's it then. I'm sending Dong Hu with 2 strangers and 30 elite soldiers to scout out the zombie nest. That the snow-worshipping sect was having a particularly rough time. They had tons of followers, mostly ordinary folks. Sure, they'd made it this far in the apocalypse, so they must have had some survival skills, but their fighting power was nothing against zombies. They might not have feared death, but they sure didn't want to die. And you don't win against the undead with that kind of attitude, even with Zhang Yi trying to organize defenses. Every zombie attack left a pile of dead believers. Pretty soon, the congregation started getting restless. Priest Wu Huan tracked down Zhang Yi to tell him about some of the rumblings he'd been hearing. We're up to over 1,000 dead members. And the infected ones could turn any minute. It's messing with the new guy's faith. If it keeps up, there'll be trouble. Zhang Yixian's face remained neutral. He put his hands behind his back and said calmly, "Don't worry about it. They're just griping. They won't do anything rash. In the next few days, I want our people spreading some rumors. Tell them that zombies have wiped out almost all the other survivors. And that without the snow worship cult protecting them, they'll be zombie chow the second they step outside. And the other groups? They're getting their butts kicked by the zombies, tons of losses. They're practically done for. Yeah, say over half of the people in the other groups have died." That Wu Huan's eyes lit up. Brilliant. Nothing like a good old comparison. If they think there are zombies everywhere else, they'll feel like they're living the high life here. They won't have anything to complain about with the snow worship cult. Zhang Yixian glanced at him, a faint smile playing on his lips. The only reason they're still complaining is that they haven't fully embraced the snow worship cult. We need to step up their indoctrination and turn them into true believers. That way, they'll realize they should be counting their blessings for joining the snow worship cult at this stage. Wu Huan clapped his hands. Only you could come up with this, High Priest. I'm on it. I'll get the ball rolling. They arranged for older members to teach the newbies the ropes and give them a healthy dose of brainwashing, pretty standard procedure for any religion. Meanwhile, Zhang Yi gathered his strongest fighters, ready to hit the subway tunnels and find the mysterious corpse king, 4 people and 1 cat, all geared up to the max. Their equipment was all top of the line now. Liu Karen had tweaked their combat suits to give them serious protection, good enough to stop bullets from smaller sniper rifles, zombie bites. Please, like scratching an itch, they were also packing a ton of superpowered food for the long haul. As for other supplies, no need to lug them around. They could always snag stuff from Zhang Yi's pocket dimension. Having a teammate with their own pocket dimension was always a plus. The crew took a ride to the entrance of Tsitsu subway station. Staring into the dark mouth of the tunnel, Zhang Yi laid out the battle plan one last time. Our number 1 goal is to take out the corpse king. If I can find him, I'm 100% sure I can kill him. In a tight space like an underground tunnel, within 300 meters, divine power could wreck everything. But our safety comes first. Don't get bogged down fighting zombies. Doesn't matter how many of those things we kill. Everyone nodded, like, got it. Zhang Yi pulled a glow stick off his belt, snapped it, and tossed it into the tunnel entrance. The blue light bounced off the ground, highlighting the black, blood-stained concrete. Uncle Yu, you're up first. Zhang Yi told Uncle Yu. He was the team's tank and could take a serious pounding, so it made sense for him to scout ahead. Uncle Yu slid down the hole without a word. After a few seconds, he hit the ground and checked the area. His tactical eyepiece didn't pick up any movement, so he radioed back to Zhang Yi, "All clear down here. You can come down." Then Zhang Yi and the others slid down. Once they were all on the ground, they took a look around. They weren't in the subway yet, just the entrance to the system. The night vision on their goggles painted a pretty clear picture of the underground scenery. Even though they'd seen some rough stuff, this still creeped them out a bit. The walls were covered in black blood, with chunks of organ stuck to them. Their feet were sticking to a mix of torn-up guts, black blood, and dirt that gave off a nasty, fishy smell. Thank God for the tactical helmets, which filtered out the stink. "Let's go." Zhang Yi took a deep breath and said in a low voice. The second line was the end of the line. If they followed the tunnels, they were sure to find some sign of the corpses. The Corpse King wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed. He was still developing, so he probably wasn't hiding too well. As they moved forward, the dark subway tunnels started to fill up with mangled skeletons. The arms and legs were stripped of flesh and covered with bite marks. They had to be zombie leftovers. As they stepped over the bones, Fatty Sue said, "I'm wondering, if they're eating the corpses, why not infect them and add them to the hoard?" Zhang Yi kept his rifle up, carefully scanning the area as he answered. "Zombies are all about eating. The infection is a side effect. I'm guessing they're just too hungry to stop chewing. Can't expect bones to reanimate, right?" Fatty Sue said, "They sure do have a big appetite. Guess it takes a lot of food to keep them going at that pace." He suddenly asked, "Hey, you know what? There are more dead than alive in Tianhai City. If there are over 10 million zombies, aren't they going to run out of food?" Zhang Yi stopped walking, and Liang Yu and Uncle Yu exchanged glances. They hadn't thought about that. They were too busy taking care of business. But yeah, what would the zombies do when they got hungry? Would they spill over from Tianhai City to the surrounding areas? Chapter 435 Shuo Rat. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Zhang Yi quickened his pace again. "Not our problem. We just gotta make sure there aren't any zombies around the shelter. In this day and age, you can't worry about everyone else." "Exactly," Fatty Sue agreed, nodding. The group moved forward at a relaxed pace. Now that they were past the departure point, they didn't have to worry about zombies sneaking up from behind. They just needed to keep moving, and they'd eventually find where the corpses were located. They walked for what seemed like forever before they finally came across a road littered with corpses. All that was left were brittle bones, stripped completely clean of any flesh. Damn, their teeth are in good shape. They couldn't have chewed them this clean if they were just gnawing on bones. Fatty Sue's natural chattiness kicked in. The silence was probably getting to him, and he was trying to lighten the mood. "Look at these bones. Every last bit of meat's been stripped off. Man, they didn't waste a thing. Maybe it just rotted off," Uncle Yu said casually. Fatty Sue scoffed, "Rot? In this weather? Have you ever eaten zombie meat, Uncle? You can freeze that stuff for a year or two and still sell it. Gross, that's just disgusting to think about." Fatty Sue's joke did manage to ease the tension a bit. Hua, tail drooping, took the lead. A cat's sense of smell was way better than a human's. That made her their best bet for sniffing out corpses. They hadn't gone far when Huahua's eyes widened like saucers, and she started whimpering, alert and cautious. "Heads up!" Zhang Yi immediately raised his gun. There was a dark shape ahead. Before Zhang Yi could even fire, Yang Yu whipped out a short knife from her belt and flung it behind her in one swift motion. The knife flashed and pinned the black shape to the ground. Zhang Yi lowered his gun, trying hard not to shoot and risk attracting more attention. They cautiously approached, and when they saw what it was, everyone gasped. Liang Yu's knife had skewered a gray rodent. It was completely gray and, at first glance, looked like a puppy, but its long, slender tail and snout gave it away. It was a giant rat. "Holy crap, that's a rat. Bigger than a cat." Fatty Sue looked like he was about to chew off his own hand in fear, and it was true. This rat was twice the size of Huahua. Zhang Yi took a deep breath. Mutant rat. Not exactly a surprise. Normal rats could get to be the size of a cat if they had enough to eat, but this thing was way bigger, a clear sign of mutation. Zhang Yi thought back to the corpses they'd seen and suddenly realized, these things must be the ones that ate those corpses. Fatty Sue thought back and muttered, with that many bodies, there's gotta be a whole colony of them. That his words cast a pall over everyone, especially Liang Yu, who suddenly looked uneasy. Even though she was a tough martial artist, she was still a girl and had that instinctive aversion to rats. The thought of facing a whole swarm of them. Just then, Hua stretched her neck and let out a piercing scream. Meow. The deep sound was full of warning, the kind she only made when facing a serious threat. At the same time, a chorus of squeaking sounds echoed from every corner of the tunnel. Looks like we walked right into a rat's nest, Zhang Yi said grimly. Giant rats poured out of every nook and cranny, like water spilling from a broken dam. Some were normal-sized, others as big as kittens or puppies. And among the grey horde, there were even albino rats the size of piglets. Disgusting, Liang Yu exclaimed, her skin crawling. Zhang Yi noticed the rat's eyes, which glowed with a disturbing red light. Those were the eyes of a creature that had tasted human flesh. No question that these creepy sewer dwellers had been feeding on corpses to survive this long. Hua continued to growl, her fur standing on end. Cats might be natural enemies of rats, but against numbers like these, any deterrent effect would be minimal. Time to clean house, Zhang Yi declared. They'd come to kill the corpse king, but they couldn't exactly avoid this fight, so they might as well take care of it. Uncle Yu and Fatty Sue grabbed their flamethrowers and let loose. Killing zombies or killing rats, what's the difference? Luckily, even though these rats were mutants, they weren't as tough as zombies. After the flames incinerated thousands of rats, the rest squeaked in terror and retreated out of range. But the vicious creatures didn't run, they just watched from the shadows, waiting for the flames to die down so they could swarm them again. The darkness was alive with the shadows of rats, too many to even count. If this kept up, who knew when they'd be able to move on, let alone find the Rat King. Zhang Yi frowned and told Fatty Sue and Uncle Yu, put away the flamethrowers, that they didn't know what he was planning, but they immediately complied. As soon as the flames went out, the rats shrieked and charged like twin rivers of grey. Zhang Yi stood in the center of the tunnel, arms outstretched. Double door. In an instant, two massive dimensional gates appeared, completely sealing off the tunnel. The rats poured into the other dimension, unable to reach the group. Liang Yu sighed in relief and patted her chest. The others stared at Zhang Yi, curious. Did you upgrade your dimensional gate? Zhang Yi explained, I've been studying how to use them. After the last fight, I figured out how to use two at once. Pretty handy, Liang Yu admitted. Being able to create two doors gave you two directions of invulnerable defense. It wasn't perfect, but in a free-for-all, it more than doubled your chances. And in this tunnel, it was basically an impenetrable shield. The rats continued to swarm into the dimensional space. The cunning creatures caught the scent of danger. The front of the horde tried to stop, but the rats behind them kept pushing forward and got forced into the other dimension. They let out a chorus of desperate squeals to warn the others. After countless rats had paid the price, the remaining ones finally sensed the danger and stopped. They stared at Zhang Yi and his group in the center of the tunnel, like a gray river dammed in the middle. From somewhere in the horde, an enormous albino rat screeched. The other giant rats all turned and began to retreat. Soon, the shadows were empty of rats. They knew they'd run into a powerful foe and didn't dare attack again. Chapter 436 Peeping. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After beating back the rats, the group continued on. Sure, those bigger rats could pose a threat to regular folks, but everyone here was some kind of powerhouse, so Zhang Yi and the others weren't too bothered. Still, Zhang Yi was a little uneasy. I wonder if all this racket will alert the zombies. Liang Yu frowned. These rats and zombies are underground. What's the connection? Who knows? Let's just keep moving. Zhang Yi didn't want to dwell on it. This underground space gave him the creeps, and he was ready to leave. They picked up the pace, but they couldn't shake the feeling of being watched by countless eyes in the dark. The creatures down here hadn't given up and were waiting for their chance. Zhang Yi ignored them, until he spotted a tattered combat uniform in a corner. That gave him pause. Their teeth are strong enough to tear through those. Better keep our distance. Fatty Sue looked worried. Do rats hold grudges? If they follow us out, we're in deep trouble. Probably not. It's warm and damp down here, but freezing outside. These aren't Arctic lemmings. Even if they could handle the cold, they wouldn't be dumb enough to come miles above ground just to mess with us. Meanwhile, outside Yangsheng Base, in the subway tunnel, Dong Hu led a squad of elite soldiers to scout things out, but not long after they ventured in, the rats attacked. The crazy rats swarmed them, red eyes glowing, screeching as they came. Their teeth were like knives, piercing their protective gear. What? These rats are monsters. Watch out. Don't let them bite you. They're getting through the armor. The soldiers screamed and frantically blasted the rats with flamethrowers and rifles. Dong Hu and his two superpowered teammates didn't hold back, unleashing their abilities. Dong Hu's power was Fire Fist. His fists ignited, releasing scorching flames that instantly incinerated groups of rats. After a brutal 10-minute fight, they finally fought them off, but 8 soldiers were dead, ripped apart by the giant rat's fangs. Many more were badly wounded. Dong Hu's face was grim. They'd barely entered the tunnel, and they were already in this bad shape, without even finding the bodies they were after. One soldier pried open a rat's mouth and gasped at the sight of its massive, gleaming teeth. There are monsters like this down here. If they come to the base, they'll be worse than the zombies. Dong Hu was silent for a moment, then said, let's keep going. We need to find those corpses and get their intel. We have to push through, no matter what. He couldn't face Xiao Honglian if he went back empty-handed. Back with Zhang Yi's group, they walked a long way, passing 2 more stations. Finally, at the 3rd station, they found the corpses. They weren't hiding, and they didn't attack. They were just lying packed together in the tunnel, like people who died in their sleep. Looking around, the long, narrow tunnel was filled with zombies. They're sleeping, Uncle Yu whispered. That makes sense. Zhang Yi said quietly, even the virus host needs energy. When they don't have orders, they hunker down and rest. Uncle Yu raised his flamethrower. Want to burn them all? Zhang Yi gazed at the sleeping zombies, remembering what Zhou Qier had said. These zombies still had some biological instincts. In a way, they were like a swarm of insects. They needed to rest and sleep. If they can stay asleep forever, we don't need to wake them up. Zhang Yi's hope was short-lived. Not long after they arrived, a sleeping zombie's eyes snapped open. More and more zombies rose, twisting their bodies upright in grotesque poses. Spotting living people, they roared and swarmed forward like maniacs. Figures it wouldn't be that easy. Now we've got trouble. Zhang Yi frowned. Instead of letting Uncle Yu use the flamethrower, he opened a dimensional gate to block the path. It would clear out the regular zombies, but it would definitely attract the attention of the Corpse King deep in the tunnel, and taking on the Corpse King again would be even harder. A wave of zombies charged into the dimensional gate. Liang Yu and the others watched, envious. Zhang Yi's defense stats were clearly maxed out, and there was almost no way to break through that ability except with massive energy attacks. The tide of corpses kept pouring in, then abruptly stopped, as if they'd received an order. It was so sudden, it was like someone had hit pause. Then, the zombies halted outside the dimensional gate and unleashed hideous screams at Zhang Yi's group. The Corpse King knows we're here, Zhang Yi said grimly. Then let's not hold back. Burn them. Uncle Yu and Fatty Sue stepped forward, flamethrowers ready. In this narrow tunnel, the flamethrowers would be devastating. 2 fire dragons, each over 30 feet long, engulfed dozens of zombies, and the flames erupted. The zombies writhed and crackled as they burned. The flames began to spread, soon engulfing hundreds of zombies. The zombies behind them began to retreat, backing out of the fire. Zhang Yi's eyes narrowed. The Corpse King isn't far. Let's go. He closed the dimensional gate and led the others deeper into the tunnel. The path ahead was completely blocked by a dense mass of corpses. They howled and moaned, but they didn't dare attack, instead slowly backing away. With so many zombies packed together, the flamethrowers were having a field day. Zhang Yi's space ability was too OP. It completely countered the zombie swarm's tactics. negating any advantage they had in numbers. It almost made it seem like the zombies were weak, but no one would think that if they'd seen these things wreaking havoc on the outside world. Chapter 437 Shadow. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Call. Call. The flamethrower kept blasting, turning the tunnel into daylight and the zombies into piles of ash. The undead were scared witless. Against Zhang Yi's crazy firepower, they were totally outmatched, but Zhang Yi didn't look happy about it. Wiping out these regular zombies didn't give him any satisfaction. He was after the Corpse King, the puppet master pulling all the strings. As long as the king was still kicking, it could pump out these zombies non-stop, but this commotion had probably already alerted the king. Now it'd be even harder to pin down its location. No matter what, Zhang Yi had to give it his best shot while he had the chance. Trusting the Dimensional Gate's insane defense, Zhang Yi led the charge, with his crew right behind. Hua and Liang Yu barely even had to lift a finger. Liang Yu kept glancing over her shoulder. "We've still got those giant rats tailing us," she warned Zhang Yi. Those sewer rats were a pain. They could squeeze into any crack. There were probably more of them than zombies, and you could never wipe them all out. Zhang Yi's voice was grim. "Forget about them for now. We need to find the Corpse King and take it out, or we'll be dealing with this forever. But we're moving too slow." Liang Yu pointed out. The tunnel was choked with zombies. You could see nothing but a mass of heads stretching to the end of the line. At this pace, they'd be burning for days. Zhang Yi shrugged. "We just keep pushing forward. We're loaded up on supplies and supernatural food this time. We can go the distance." Liang Yu stared, surprised. Zhang Yi was ready for a long haul. She hadn't considered that at all. A war of attrition in the tunnels. She thought it was a risky call. It wasn't like Zhang Yi to do things this way. The deeper they went, the harder it would be to pull out if things went south. But Zhang Yi looked so confident that Liang Yu held her tongue. She tightened her grip on her Tang Dao, standing guard on Zhang Yi's left. With her skills, no one was going to sneak up on him. Another half hour of slaughter passed. The zombies were lambs to the slaughter, completely defenseless. Zhang Yi didn't have to worry about the Dimensional Gate's energy consumption. Gradually, they noticed the zombies were running scared. The Corpse King realized it couldn't win and was pulling back its forces. "Fewer zombies now, we can pick up the pace." Uncle Yu called out to Zhang Yi. Fatty Su was getting hyped. "Maybe the Corpse King's bugged out. We blow up the subway and problem solved." Zhang Yi wasn't buying it. "Great idea, but the subway's not sealed off. There are entrances every few blocks. If you wanted to block this place off for good, you'd have to blow the whole damn tunnel network." "You think that's realistic?" Fatty Su looked sheepish. "Guess not. The subway lines stretched for miles. It would take a mountain of explosives. Better to just kill all the zombies in here." Meanwhile, back with the Yangqing Base Survey Corps, they were deep inside the Rongchang Line tunnel. They'd taken casualties in a rat attack and were barely hanging on. Finally, they stumbled upon a whole bunch of corpses. Dong Hu's eyes went wide. "Fall back. Everyone, retreat." The zombies smelled fresh meat. One by one their eyes snapped open, and they got up to meet their new arrivals. The whole subway line was full of undead. Maybe there were tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands. It was like the Corpse King had dragged every dead body in Tianhai City down to the subway and turned them into these monsters. "Run and don't look back." Dong Hu unleashed a blast of fire that roasted a dozen zombies, but behind them, a swarm of zombies forced their way past their burning comrades and charged forward like a tidal wave. Flamethrowers, grenades, everything was being thrown. The Survey Corps knew that zombies hated fire, so they made sure every member came prepared with something. Their weapons held the zombies back for a little while. "We need to fall back. There are 10 times more zombies than we've seen before. This isn't a fight we can win." Dong Hu and the others were terrified. The sheer number of zombies was beyond anything they could have imagined. They had steeled themselves, but still were taken aback. "Retreat. Our firepower can keep them busy for a bit. Head for the nearest exit. Go go go." Dong Hu barked out orders. They weren't here to die, they were here for intel. So, when faced with an unbeatable horde, discretion was the better part of valor. Just then, a flamethrower operator's eyes shot open wide. He pointed to the massive shape looming out of the fire. "What the hell is that?" Everyone in the Survey Corps saw it too. It lumbered through the flames, revealing a monstrous head 3 times the size of a normal person's. Roar! The soldiers at the front were ripped to shreds in an instant. Even Dong Hu and the other powered individuals sank into despair. "This is not good." Zhang Yi and his team chased the retreating zombies, leaving a trail of fire in their wake. They marched through the flames and the burning corpses in their special suits, completely unfazed. The zombie horde was still falling back, its numbers dwindling. Zhang Yi's group pushed through the tunnel and emerged into a large open space. Another station. Now Zhang Yi understood why the zombies had scattered so quickly. It was a transfer station. The zombies could fan out to other passages. This complicates things. With the transfer station, we can't pinpoint the Corpse King's exact location. How do we know which way to go? Fatty Sue looked around, lost. "I have a feeling," Zhang Yi said quietly. His eyes swept across the station, sharp and intense. "That thing isn't far away." As soon as he said it, they heard heavy footsteps echoing through the tunnels. Clunk, clunk. Boom. 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 Something was stepping over corpses, getting closer with slow, heavy strides. The sound echoed in the dark, bouncing off the walls. It was hard to tell what was coming, or how many of them there were. "They're coming." Chapter 438 Bronze Armored Corpse. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Boom. 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 A muffled thumping echoed through the subway. Zhang Yi and the others tensed up. The sound was like something monstrous breaking free. "Heads up. Big boys are coming." Zhang Yi warned. Fatty Sue swallowed hard, gripping his flamethrower, eyes darting around. Could the zombie horde they just fought off be back for more? "We're good," Uncle Yu declared. "Bring on as many of those things as they want, we can take them." They knew what they were up against. Sure, the zombies were tough, but they were nothing compared to aliens like them. Besides, they were loaded for bear, weapons, ammo, supercharged snacks. They had everything they needed to handle a major zombie attack. Suddenly, Hua Hua let out a howl. Meow. The sound was pure warning, like she was facing some truly terrifying enemy. Hua Hua was a powerhouse, especially when she went giant, even stronger than Uncle Yu. If she was on high alert, it meant they were in deep trouble. Zhang Yi's face turned grim. He muttered to himself, "Could it be the Corpse King?" Corpse King. The words hung heavy in the air. No one had ever seen one, but something that controlled thousands, maybe tens of thousands, of zombies was bound to be a real nightmare. How strong was it? What kind of powers did it have? Was it a mutated human or some super-evolved zombie? The thumping was getting closer. Down the tunnel, a dark shape started to materialize. Everyone's eyes locked on it. Out of the shadows, a tall, spindly thing like a giant praying mantis was lurching towards them. Zhang Yi's eyes widened. This wasn't human, it was a monster, vaguely humanoid, covered in hard, bronze-colored skin, at least 10 feet tall, with arms that nearly scraped the ground, no fat on it, just knotted, reddish-black muscle wrapped in that bronze hide. A triangular head with huge ears, a mouth full of gleaming fangs, and eyes. 8 of them. Brown, vertical pupils. Besides the 2 on its head, there were 6 more on its arms and chest, constantly swiveling around. They'd seen some crazy stuff since the end of the world, but nothing like this. No one could tell if it was some twisted corpse or a mutation gone wild. But those muscles and that size. This thing was trouble with a capital T. Uncle Yu blurted out, "Is that the Corpse King?" Before anyone could answer, 3 more of the same things appeared from the other tunnels, quadruplets, almost. Slight size differences, but otherwise identical. What is this, mass production? There's no way these things are natural. Zhang Yi's heart pounded. He knew there had to be something bigger at play here. The zombie outbreak wasn't just random. Someone was pulling the strings. Behind the monsters, the zombie horde was back, gathering around the bronze figures, their eyes gleaming. Zombies blocked every exit. So many, it was impossible to count, the sheer weight of numbers was crushing. Even veterans like them felt the pressure. Fatty Sue was pale. Those aren't ordinary zombies. Zhang Yi's jaw tightened. I get it. They led us here. This was a trap. They're trying to wipe us out. He'd always known the Corpse King was smart, but he never expected this kind of planning. He'd seriously underestimated it, something that could control hordes and strategize like that. If it kept evolving, it would be a nightmare for Tianhai City. For the whole damn world. Zhang Yi, what do we do? Uncle Lu asked. Zhang Yi's grin was cold. What else can we do? We fight. Out in the open like this, his double doors weren't much use, but even without them, they were a force to be reckoned with. Uncle Yu and Fatty Sue unleashed their flamethrowers, bathing the approaching zombies in fire. Liang Yu drew her katana. Finally, a chance to really cut loose. Zhang Yi cautioned. Liang Yu, Hua, stick close to me. We can't afford to spread out. Strength in numbers. Liang Yu nodded. She knew Zhang Yi wasn't a hand-to-hand fighter. He needed protection. Hua, of course, never strayed far from Zhang Yi. He was her person. The four monsters lumbered forward, their armor-like skin glinting dully. They reminded Zhang Yi of something he'd seen in a movie, a bronze-armored zombie, tough as steel, immune to blades and bullets. Maybe these were mutated corpses, maybe something else entirely, but one thing was for sure. If they commanded the zombies, they were dangerous. Take out the leaders, then the rest will fall easily. Zhang Yi told them. Everyone understood. The horde surged forward, the bronze figures roared, shaking the tunnel. The zombies echoed them, a deafening wave of sound. Roar! They charged, ready to die. Even the giant rats, lurking in the shadows, joined the attack, eyes burning with hunger. The zombies came on regardless of the cost, driven by the Corpse King. They were the cannon fodder, meant to break Zhang Yi's defenses, create an opening for the bronze monsters. They wouldn't just sit down and die. They are under the control of the Corpse King. But Zhang Yi and his crew weren't pushovers. They'd been lured into this open space, where his double doors couldn't work. Every escape route was blocked. They had to stand and fight. Zhang Yi had never been in such a tight spot, cornered with no easy way out, but he wasn't afraid. He'd faced worse and come out on top. Roar! The horde slammed into them. The sheer number of bodies, the rats swarming underfoot, were enough to rattle anyone. Uncle Lu and Fatty Sue were sweating bullets, but their flamethrowers roared, incinerating zombies and rats alike. This time, the zombies didn't flinch. They charged straight into the flames, willing to burn for the cause. That was the Corpse King's command. Zombies are not afraid of death. That was why they used to run away. The Corpse King was afraid of death. They want to use it to break the formation of Zhang Yi and his team. Everyone was a superpowered alien. In the darkness, Liang Yu's katana flashed like moonlight. Since absorbing Mad Dog's powers, she was faster, stronger. Her blade glowed blue, a 3-meter arc of death. She spun and weaved, turning zombies into bloody chunks. Uncle Yu and Fatty Sue's flamethrowers created a wall of fire. Hua and Zhang Yi held their ground. Hua was a fierce fighter, but her top priority was protecting Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi didn't want to act because his ability was defense, which wasn't useful right now. His main way to attack are the rifles and explosives in his hand. He picked up his rifle, firing at the zombies' legs. Supercharged rounds shattered bones, slowing them down, turning rats into a red paste. Neither zombies nor rats were a match for aliens like Zhang Yi. Not long after, the 4 bronze monsters charged into the fight. One picked up 2 zombies and swung them at Zhang Yi and the others. Chapter 439 The Power of Divine Power. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A bronze-armored zombie opened its massive hands, grabbed the zombies beside it, and hurled them like bricks at Zhang Yi and the others. Several other bronze-armored zombies followed suit, raining zombies down. This overhead assault made things difficult. Zhang Yi calmly opened a dimensional gate directly above them. The zombies all fell into the other space, avoiding contact. The 4 bronze-armored corpses paused, surprised. Then, they charged forward, legs pumping, to attack Zhang Yi and his team. Fatty Sue paled. Trapped underground, he couldn't use his powers and had to rely on his flamethrower. The bronze-armored corpse, over 10 feet tall, barreled toward him. Fatty Sue stared at its massive, tough body, convinced it could tear him apart with a single swipe. Ag! Fatty Sue roared and unleashed his flamethrower, spraying the bronze-armored corpse with maximum firepower. But then, something shocking happened. The intense heat of the flamethrower washed over it, but the bronze-armored corpse didn't even ignite. The flames didn't leave a mark on its bronze skin. The bronze-armored corpse, briefly slowed by the flames, impatiently grabbed zombies and tossed them at Fatty Sue, now very close. The bronze-armored corpse startled Fatty Sue, causing him to hesitate. Seeing it approach, Zhang Yi spread his arms and used his secret defense technique. The double door, two massive dimensional doors slammed into place, blocking the passage in both directions and preventing the zombies from attacking. However, this meant Zhang Yi couldn't use the dimensional gatekeeper to attack. In this open area, more zombies and two huge bronze-armored corpses remained. It felt like a pair of eyes was watching them. The moment Zhang Yi opened the double doors, the zombies in the blocked directions froze. The others surged forward, roaring and charging. Damn it, there has to be a corpse king calling the shots. It's too bad we can't kill these zombies. How are we supposed to get to the corpse king? Uncle Yu said angrily. Zhang Yi's calm voice cut through the tension. Relax. Stay calm and observant. We'll find the corpse king. It's close, I can feel it. Though the situation looked dire, Zhang Yi knew that killing the corpse king would solve everything. He'd blocked most of the attacking zombies with the double doors, and Liang Yu and the others should be able to handle the rest. The two remaining bronze-armored corpses, along with waves of zombies and giant rats, rushed forward. Uncle Yu and Fatty Sue holstered their flamethrowers. Using them now would be too dangerous. Let's do this. Uncle Yu activated his skills and transformed into a 7-foot-tall powerhouse. He charged and collided with a bronze-armored corpse. Boom! The bronze-armored corpse was even bigger than Uncle Yu. The two grappled, evenly matched, like sumo wrestlers at the climax of a fight. But the bronze-armored corpse was stronger and bigger. Its moves were clumsy and simplistic. Uncle Yu, with his years of martial arts training, had superior combat skills. Using his experience, Uncle Yu fought the bronze-armored corpse. Liang Yu, wielding a long sword, blocked the other bronze-armored corpse. Her sword glowed blue as it flashed through the air. The bronze-armored corpse didn't react. Suddenly, a long gash appeared on its chest. A deep crack appeared in the bronze armor, oozing a viscous blue liquid. The bronze-armored corpse staggered back, and Liang Yu also retreated a few steps. Both were surprised. Liang Yu didn't expect that her full-strength blow hadn't split the zombie in two but had only cracked its outer shell. She could usually slice a tank in half. The bronze-armored corpse, with its metal-like shell breached and fluid leaking, roared in anger. It looked at Liang Yu with fear but charged forward anyway, its huge claws extended, the long nails like sharp knives, gleaming coldly. This thing is tough, Liang Yu said, charging with her sword. But they weren't just facing bronze-armored corpses. Countless zombies and giant rats swarmed from all directions. Even if Liang Yu and Uncle Yu held their own against the bronze-armored corpses, they couldn't handle the massive horde of zombies and rats. At this critical moment, Zhang Yi told Hua, help Uncle Yu. Hua, obeying Zhang Yi's order, raced to join the fray. With its help, the corpses attacking Uncle Yu were quickly eliminated. Transformed into a chariot, Hua tore through the narrow passage, killing the corpses at a terrifying speed. Zhang Yi had warned him not to bite the zombies to avoid poisoning, but as a chariot, Hua crushed rats and zombies under his wheels. That left the zombies attacking Liang Yu. Zhang Yi focused his gaze, the white light in his right eye flickering, condensing, solidifying. Liang Yu, move! Zhang Yi shouted. Liang Yu sensed something and jumped back, clearing the way. Divine power! Zhang Yi said softly. The space in front of him distorted. Unexpectedly, a large area exploded like popcorn, with chunks of flesh and blood flying. Instantly, a cylindrical tunnel appeared, extending over 900 feet. All zombies within that zone were pulverized, including the bronze-armored corpse with the terrifying defense. Its upper body was almost completely destroyed, leaving only its legs standing. This was Zhang Yi's strongest attack skill, Shen Wei.